Good morning from WKYT News. I'm Bill Bryant, and we hope you're enjoying your weekend. Later, a candidate for Congress who has run before, but who says he's more determined than ever to be heard in the 2018 election cycle. Geoff Young will join us later. But first, the Attorney General of Kentucky is here. Andy Beshear is the chief law enforcement official in the Commonwealth and is also making a big push on consumer protection and Kentucky's deadly and complicated drug addiction issues. Beshear and Governor Matt Bevin have tangled over university boards, and some speculate they could face each other in 2019. The Attorney General says he's focused on the task at hand, but knows he'll have to stay in the fight somehow in Frankfort, regardless of the path he chooses. Republican State Senator Whitney Westerfield, who narrowly lost to Beshear in 2015, says he's running again. Andy Beshear is Kentucky's 50th Attorney General. He's also worked on Medicaid fraud, holding back utility rate hikes, and has taken on some who are in charge of cemeteries, among other things. Attorney General Andy Beshear joining us. Good morning, sir. Welcome.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Well, people are looking for some encouragement in dealing with this deadly wave of drug abuse and addiction that we have in Kentucky. You moderated a panel in Lexington this week. Can you report any progress?
Well, Bill, as you know, our addiction crisis, our drug epidemic, is the single greatest threat that faces Kentucky. It's first our single greatest moral threat. It's taking the lives of children from their parents, and it's taking the lives of parents from their children. It's also the single greatest threat to economic job growth in this Commonwealth, because if we don't have a healthy workforce, we are not going to be able to fill those jobs. I want your viewers to know that we in the Attorney General's office work day in and day out to address this drug epidemic. We've got investigators that work on a DEA task force that chase the worst of the worst fentanyl and carfentanil dealers. And I tell you what, we were able to hold one of those dealers responsible that caused that outbreak in Mount Sterling, several months ago, and in the end caused a fatal overdose. We have a HIDTA task force in Appalachia that works on making sure that there aren't doctors or pharmacies that continue to flood communities with drugs. We provided over $8 million of treatment funding all across the Commonwealth. It's led to more healthy babies being born in Corbin and in West Kentucky. It's created a new adolescent treatment center in the west end of Louisville. And just this week, we announced a program on prevention that we talked about at that panel yesterday that I think could be transformational.
Well, isn't prevention going to have to be key? We have had, yes, war on drug after war on drugs in the state and in the nation over these years, and the problem persists. Can we report progress on anything that is going to work?
I believe that we can, because on the prevention side, it's both about education, and we're still working to find what is that best way we can reach young people, because now, the first time you try a drug, it can and it will kill you. Carfentanil is that deadly. But I also think we now have an opportunity to address supply. We've always focused on street drugs and supply, and that's very hard because another dealer moves in. But what we know now is that 80% of heroin users start by abusing prescription drugs, and 70% of those folks get it from a friend or a family member's medicine cabinet.
Many people believe that we're jailing people instead of treating their addictions. Some say you have to do both. Yes. Have the courts and the penal system shifted fast enough to effectively address this wave?
I'm very proud of how our justice system is willing to change to address what we have to. There are a lot of prosecutors out there that feel that they are more of drug counselors now than they've ever been. We spent $2 million of settlement funds from the Attorney General's office funding the Rocket Docket. That gets people, users, not dealers, but users, out of court and into treatment as quickly as we can. We were recently able to expand that based on an additional grant from the Justice Cabinet, and I appreciate that coming from the executive branch. We're also trying to expand drug courts everywhere they are, but there is no question that treatment is absolutely necessary. These are our friends, our family members, our neighbors, and they're suffering. And we need to make sure that we have the treatment available to them to help them get better. But Bill, we have not sacrificed as a state like we need to. We're going to have a lot of needs coming up in this next budgetary session. But if we don't fund treatment in a meaningful way that makes sure that anybody that comes to us that says, I'm ready to get better, can get better, then shame on us, because that's not only going to put our lives at risk, but it's going to put that next job opportunity, that potential job growth at risk as well.
Are you saying that it needs to come from the state level? The
yes.
localities say they don't have the money.
It absolutely needs to come from the state level and from the nonprofit sector and anywhere else that wants to step up and meet this challenge. You know, we've got two major crises in Kentucky. We got a pension crisis and we've got a drug epidemic. And I got to tell you, they are both incredibly important. But I will say, Bill, while I want to address that pension crisis, it's never killed anybody's son. It's never killed anybody's daughter. We need to sacrifice for those pensions. We need to take action. At the same time, we need to be willing to put significant resources to address this drug epidemic to make sure that we can get our people better.
This opioid disposal program that you announced this week is designed to do what? You brought one of the bags? I
am excited about this. Bill, this has given me as much hope in addressing this drug epidemic as I've had as your Attorney General. With 80% of heroin users starting with prescription drugs, we know that if we can reduce the supply of prescription drugs, both through what's prescribed, but also what's in people's medicine cabinets, that we can slow the rate or maybe even reverse the rate of addiction. We've launched a pilot project with 50,000 deactivation pouches. Each one of these can deactivate up to 45 prescription opioids, and it's entirely safe. All you have to do is tear off the top. You can pour up to 45 opioids in it, fill it halfway with water, wait just 30 seconds, cinch it up, and drop it in the trash. They are totally deactivated. Somebody could drink it. Worst they're going to get is a stomach ache, and it is entirely environmentally friendly. The water supply will not be affected. If we can clean out every single medicine cabinet in Kentucky, we will slow the rate of addiction. We will save people's lives. I'm very excited about the possibility.
And could that work for other drugs besides even the opioids?
Yes. The medicine cabinet's one of the most dangerous places in the house, both for opioids and other potentially dangerous drugs. This will deactivate any organic medication, and especially for our seniors, who at one point were taught that they ought to hold on to these drugs. What we're seeing now are break-ins, specifically in their homes, of people who are looking for prescription drugs. This doesn't just make your medicine cabinet safer for your kids and grandkids, it makes your home safer. We can reverse some of these property crimes. Again, it is a real opportunity.
And people get those how?
Well, we have our pilot project where we have 10,000 pouches each going to 4 counties, Floyd, Perry, Henderson, and McCracken. We're also going to have 10,000 at our senior events throughout the state. But people can also get these at Walmart. They are more expensive, but I tell you what, it's worth it to clean out your medicine cabinet.
Some localities are now moving to sue drug companies. Louisville is going to federal court to sue. Now, we know that,
right.
You know, when the tobacco situation, the horizon was changing 20 years ago or so, that it was the legal route that may ultimately have created a lot of change. What do you make of that approach? Do you support it?
I do, because I've announced that my office is going to be filing multiple lawsuits to hold these multinational companies that have made billions ravaging our communities with these deadly products. I'm going to hold them accountable and responsible. If they've made their shareholders billions causing this damage, the least they can do is invest millions back to help us get out of this epidemic, to help repair families. To me, it's not about punishment, it's about responsibility. They can't profit off devastation and not help us to rebuild. So out of your Attorney General's office, you are going to see multiple lawsuits in the coming months. I fully support localities also filing, because they've been devastated and their budgets now are hurting and reeling. Virtually all property crime that they deal with comes from drugs, if not all crime on its own. We've got counties having to treat their water supply for opioids, again caused by all of these drugs that have flooded our communities. My hope is to work and to coordinate with communities after we file, having them file as well, so in the end we can all do what's best for our people.
The Attorney General of Kentucky, Andy Beshear, is our guest on Kentucky Newsmakers. We'll be back with more questions, other topics in just a moment. Welcome back to WKYT's Kentucky Newsmakers. We're visiting with the Attorney General of the Commonwealth, Andy Beshear, continuing our discussion. We can see from where we're sitting the radar indicating this Hurricane Harvey that is making its way, of course, up the Gulf Coast at this point. We could have some issues in Kentucky. Price gouging always a concern.
It is.
Yes. Are you watching for that?
We are. One of my roles as Attorney General is to protect people from being taken advantage of in some of the worst natural disasters we see. So what I'd ask is that all Kentuckians, if you see something you think is price gouging, people trying to take advantage of a natural disaster or the suffering of others, please call any of our numbers. We will get you to the right place. We want to make sure that this doesn't happen and that you're treated fairly.
The State Cyber Crimes Unit assists state and local police. Your office reporting a record number of child predators have been arrested in the last 20 months.
I am so proud of that division. During the last year, we nearly tripled the number of child sex offenders we removed from Kentucky communities. That makes Kentucky safer for my kids and for your viewers' kids. And these are very dangerous people. You know, we just had an arrest after some indictments from somebody who was trading photographs of infants. We have people who show up thinking that they are going to pay money to have sex with children that have children in their back seats, Bill. So we delve into the darkness of humanity on a daily basis so that we can make sure we take people off these streets and make Kentucky safer. I'm so proud of those investigators. They work so hard, and their families and our families are safer for it.
You have tangled with the governor over control of state university boards and other things, and whether he can go in and reorganize those boards. His team argued before the state Supreme Court that it's moot because the legislature has already made a law that goes his way. Why do you disagree with him in terms of feeling that those terms need to be staggered?
Well, this isn't about me or the governor. This is about our universities and its students. The governor continues to claim the power to dissolve and purge a university's governing board at any time for any reason. And Bill, if a governor can do that, they can control every decision of the university, from the hiring and firing of faculty to even the courses that are offered. I don't think anybody watching this thinks the governor or any other appointed or political official in Frankfurt ought to determine how our universities run. And if they are going to be accredited, they must be independent. Accreditation is what you have to have for every dollar of federal financial aid that Kentucky students are getting. It's what you have to get the research dollars and jobs that employ thousands of Kentucky families. It's what you have to have for NCAA eligibility. And this isn't just the University of Louisville. During the reaccreditation phase, every Kentucky university, including UK, has to prove that they meet certain standards. One of those standards is that a governing board cannot be removed. Their people can't be removed without a fair process. If the governor still claims this power to blow up a board at any time for any reason with virtually no process, then every university is at threat in their reaccreditation. Again, that's federal financial aid, research jobs, and NCAA eligibility.
Let's talk some politics. State Senator Whitney Westerfield, whom you defeated by just over 2,000 votes in 2015, is already says he's running again. He's raising money and collecting endorsements. Does that pressure you to reach a decision about 2019?
Not at all. I ran for this job because I wanted to be Kentucky's Attorney General, because I wanted to make families safer, because I wanted to better protect seniors and address sexual assault and work on trying to stem the tide of this drug epidemic. And I want to spend every single day I can being that Attorney General, working on that mission. I want every day in this job I can before I have to be a candidate for anything. I want to make sure that I meet that obligation, that we do as much as we possibly can, and all that politics can wait for another day.
If you're going to have to fight very hard for re-election and you know, your opposition is coming after you anyway, does that make it further tempting for you to consider the governor's race?
Well, you know, in Frankfurt, I think I've had somebody coming after me on most days. Another voice isn't going to bother me. I believe in doing what's right, and I think if I spend every day working to stop this drug epidemic, providing this Kentucky opioid disposal program where people's homes can be safer, launching scam alerts, that first direct text, direct email scam warning system, that people are going to see that good work, and whatever the future is, it's going to take care of itself. But that work is what's most important to me. That's why I wanted to do this, to build that better world for my kids.
Do you have a timetable for your decision?
Well, I'm not going to make a decision anytime in the near future. I can tell you in the coming months, you're not going to hear anything at all, because all I'm going to be doing is showing up to do the job that I was elected to do.
Andy Beshear, the Attorney General of the Commonwealth, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
And keep it here. Coming next, 6th District candidate for Congress, Geoff Young. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Kentucky Newsmakers from WKYT. Republican Congressman Andy Beshear is clearly positioning himself for a 4th term in Washington next year. He hopes to again represent the 6th Congressional District by winning that election. But Democrats have said openly that the seat that represents Central Kentucky is on their target list. In recent weeks, State Senator Reggie Thomas of Lexington and retired Marine Lieutenant Colonel Amy McGrath have made high-profile announcements of their candidacies for the Democratic nomination. But another candidate is out there stirring and has been longer than they have. Geoff Young calls himself a Bernie Sanders Democrat and an expert on foreign policy. He has a degree in economics from MIT. He first came to Lexington in 1977 to help build a solar house near Raven Run. He worked several years on energy issues in Frankfort. He's run unsuccessfully for the State House, for governor, and for Congress twice. This is his 3rd attempt to get to Washington. Mr. Young, thanks for coming. We appreciate you coming in.
Thank you, Bill. I appreciate it.
Why have you decided to run for Congress again? You say on your website the main reason is that Washington has become too warlike and destructive.
That's exactly right, Bill. Peace is the defining issue of our time. In 1800s, slavery was the defining issue. In 1950 to 1960s, civil rights was the defining issue. Peace is now the most important issue of our time because the United States and the world are in imminent danger of a nuclear war started by neoconservatives in Washington. I am the only peace candidate currently running. I expect to be the only peace candidate running for Congress in Kentucky's 6th District this year. And my opinion is that anyone who is not a peace candidate is on the wrong side of history.
Can there be peace when there are so many potential foreign threats to the United States right now?
Well, I question that assumption, Bill. The only threats to the United States are the threats that our aggressive, reckless foreign policies have created for ourselves. No country threatens to invade and conquer the United States. Terrorism is a manageable problem. And in the words of Noam Chomsky, one of my professors at MIT in the 1970s, the best way to reduce the amount of terrorism in the world is to stop committing it ourselves.
In this race already, as we mentioned, Senator Reggie Thomas, he holds a political office, has won before. Colonel McGrath has already raised over $500,000. There's some talk that Lexington Mayor Jim Gray could be interested. How do you compete with those with much more money and much higher profiles?
I compete with them on the issues. Again, if they're not pro-peace, they're on the wrong side of history. So currently I have 3 opponents, Amy McGrath, Andy Beshear, and Reggie Thomas. They are all victims of the neoconservative ideology that has grabbed hold of Washington, D.C. for the last 20 years, and they are all on the wrong side of history. They differ on a number of issues, but on the most important issue facing Kentucky and America, they are too pro-war to be considered qualified to represent the 6th District.
You have called yourself, as we said, a Bernie Sanders Democrat. On health care, are you for universal care or a single-payer system? What's your developed stance on that issue?
Well, unlike Reggie Thomas and Amy McGrath, I do not equivocate on that issue. I'm not wishy-washy. And of course, Barr opposes health care entirely. So he can be written off on that issue. I support the bill that U.S. Representative John Conyers has been working on and introducing for the last 14 years. House Resolution 676, the Improved and Expanded Medicare for All Act, and it now has, last time I checked, 116 co-sponsors in the U.S. House, all of them Democrats. I support that bill. One of the first things I will do when I get to Washington and after being sworn in, I will co-sponsor that Expanded and Improved Medicare for All Act, just as Congressman John Yarmouth in Louisville, Jefferson County has signed on as a co-sponsor. I will join my colleague, Congressman Yarmouth, in that.
The Trump administration believes that business is getting back and the economy is starting to roll because regulations are being pulled back, at least in part. You spent your career in Frankfurt dealing with energy issues. What is your approach on energy?
I have adopted the idea of the Green New Deal that was promoted by Dr. Jill Stein in the presidential race last year. I was an actual member of the Green Party from 2009 through 2013 here in Kentucky, but now I'm a Democrat again, my lifelong party. We need to convert our economy from fossil fuel-based economy over time, it won't happen overnight, to renewable energy, energy efficiency, which was my prime area of focus when I worked in Frankfurt at the State Energy Office. Energy waste benefits no one, Bill. And the more efficiently we can use energy, the less fossil fuel we will have to mine. Now, the problem of unemployment in the coal fields is a serious problem. It's gone on for decades. And the coal fields need diversification of the economy. And actually, President Obama proposed a very good solution toward the end of his administration to promote other industries in Appalachia to take up the slack for the declining coal industry. Andy Beshear and all Republicans talk about a war on coal. That's ridiculous. It's a myth. If all environmental regulations on coal mining were eliminated today, you still couldn't save the coal industry. Natural gas is replacing coal, and energy efficiency and renewables are a tide that are going to gradually wind down the coal industry. And if we adjust, everyone can benefit. Mr.
Young, before you could get to Washington and take any of your ideas there, you would have to win in the 6th Congressional District, and Republican Congressman Barr has been easily reelected since his first win in 2012. President Trump carried 18 of the 19 counties in this district. Can a Democrat gain traction by leveling criticism at him?
Sure. I criticize bad ideas and bad policies and bad legislation. Now, Amy McGrath recently made a blunder that I think I will be using against her for the next 9 months, that she approved of the fact that President Trump signed a sanctions bill against North Korea, Russia, and Iran. That was passed overwhelmingly in the U.S. House and the U.S. Senate. Terrible bill. It was terrible, terribly destructive. It ties the president's hands if he sometime decides that he would like to get along better with Russia. Sanctions can often lead to war. Our Western European allies hate the bill. They're outraged by it. Russia is enraged by it. Sanctions have not worked against North Korea for 67 years. We have been using only the stick in our relations with North Korea for the last 2/3 of a century, Bill. And so all of our foreign policies need to be reevaluated and changed, if necessary, to be more peaceful.
You have said, as we're about to wrap here, you've said that refusing to debate is unethical.
Right.
And you seem concerned that those who have more resources at their disposal for their campaigns will attempt to keep you from the table.
Well, you're helping today by allowing me to put forth my view that peace is the defining issue of our time, so I appreciate that.
What will you be doing in these next weeks and months ahead to try to gain attention?
I will be doing town hall meetings. The next one is in Owingsville in Bath County on Saturday, September 2nd. I'll be going out there to do a town meeting. Anyone can come. And I will be going to all the counties of the 6th District, and I will be continually challenging Andy Barr, Reggie Thomas, Amy McGrath, and any other Democrat who jumps into debates. And if they refuse to debate me, I will be calling them cowards.
Geoff Young, thank you for coming. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you for joining us for this edition of Kentucky Newsmakers on WKYT. We'll see you bright and early this week on WKYT This Morning. And we hope you make it a good week ahead.